The Eastern Cape government has withdrawn its new Information and Communication Technology plan after confirming the strategy document was plagiarised. Authorities say the only parts of the plan that weren't a direct copy of another document were the projects and location. Mvusiwekhaya Sicwetscha, the Eastern Cape Premier's spokesperson, joins us now to talk about this. Thank you very much, Mr. Sicwetscha, for your time. So how was this plagiarism initially picked up?
Thank you for inviting us. Good afternoon to you and your viewers. The Premier was informed by one of the members of the Executive Council, who at the time was going through the planning processes in her department. And when she brought this to the Premier's attention, he immediately asked the officials, the DG, to look into the matter, and he got both documents to be assessed. And when this was confirmed, the Premier took a decision, which was a proper decision, to withdraw the document from government structures and institutions, because it was a dishonest document. It did not reflect how the provincial government is addressing the aspirations and the needs of the people of our province, in line with our provincial development plan.
So we're going to get to more details of that plagiarism in a minute, but it's quite ironic that plagiarism should be picked up in regard specifically to information and communication technology. Is this an indication perhaps that communication within the provincial structures is failing to such an extent that officials feel they can get away with blatantly stealing communications strategy from not just another province but from another country altogether?
Remember, this is not a pure corporate communication strategy. It's an ICT strategy, very technical, and we were not expecting this embarrassing situation because we have appointed people with skills and experience to produce this strategy for the province. So the Premier is now looking at options to say, how do we bring in industry skills to help government, to work with government, as it has happened before, where members of society assisted government in addressing the problem.
So the Premier's office has said the officials responsible will face disciplinary action. Have they been identified?
The first point for the Premier was to confirm veracity of this plagiarism, and when it was confirmed, we then moved to withdraw the document from government, from all records of government. And now we need to look at what circumstances led to this and who are the individuals that did this thing. Because for us, the strategy, maybe people don't understand this. They need to understand this point. The reason we're doing this thorough investigation is because the strategy is not a product of a one person or a division of a department. It's a product of a collective of heads of ICT in the provincial government. So it's important that we don't just look at what was submitted. Now that there's a problem with it, we need to look at who played what role, what contribution was made by other employees, at what point, and what could be, or maybe could it be that if this situation is happening on a product that came from a collective, could that situation be the case in the department? So we're looking at a number of things, because our responsibility is not to rubber stamp, but to look at issues. So when we get a report that there's unethical conduct that has happened, a misconduct, a dishonest thing, we need to look beyond what was submitted to government and look at the entire public service.
So plagiarism is not only a serious offence in the eyes of the law. In this case, it's also caused a serious delay in the implementation of that important plan and strategy. What action will be taken against those responsible once they've been identified by this extended investigation?
Look, obviously, you are right when how you're putting it. The first action that will be done, or the only action actually that needs to be done, it's a disciplinary action. Those that are wrong need to be charged, and disciplinary process need to kick in, so that we don't have a repeat of this embarrassing situation in government at all.
Is there a record on how government reacts to plagiarism, and can we expect these officials to be suspended or to be removed entirely from their positions? What's the level of disciplinary action taken in this kind of case?
Look, the public service is clear about dishonesty and unethical conduct that brings government into disrepute. So what the disciplinary process will recommend after having looked at the issue is what will be implemented by government. We can't say at this point what will be that outcome of the disciplinary action, but there will have to be consequences for this dishonest behavior. We cannot tolerate it at all. Everyone has a responsibility to work, make a contribution out of their skills and expertise to develop the lives of our people. Because if you're copying a document from 2015, it shows a lot of wrong things. I mean, we need to reflect in our strategies things that are addressing the developmental challenges in our province. We should be concerned about a lack of signal in other communities, in other rural villages, and bring those into the mainstream of ICT. So we can't be taking what was planned for another country and think it's going to materialize here. We need real African solutions to African challenges. So this is a good big no-no for us. That's why the Premier took a decision to withdraw the document and instruct that a new strategy must be developed. And because we're seeing this problem, we now need to look at how other industry players can assist us, given the challenge that we have within the system.
And just some context for our viewers who may not be familiar with all the facts of the story, that document was plagiarised from an Australian document. So as you said there, Mr. Sicwetsha, a new document has been commissioned by the Premier. When can we expect that to be finalised?
We are moving with speed, but we're not going to hurry it. We need to attend to all the issues that obviously were not looked into when colleagues were doing the first attempt, which was actually nothing of what was expected. And an interesting thing is this: when our guys were looking at these documents, they realized that even the document that our people copied from, it was a plagiarized copy of a document from another country. So it's something that we're looking at to say the thinking that goes through these needs to address developmental challenges that are shown by data, by research for our province, the household survey that comes from Stats SA, and all these other development data sets. We need to respond to those. So if we're not planning properly, we are going to miss these data indications of underdevelopment. Because when you don't have proper strategies responding to data, you're going to continue sustaining underdevelopment, and you're not going to allocate resources properly. So we need to also expand our focus in the ICT space, not to look at government ICT infrastructure, but look at ICT as a critical economic development enabler, because we want to grow our economy by 27% GDP. We want to increase our economic growth with 5%, by 5% in 2030. So we can't do this if we're going to take old documents from other countries that we don't even know if they've worked. So we need to come up with strategies that are talking to what we do. So the Premier is going to be focusing on this thing, and is going to make sure that what comes in, it's a document that has got integrity, that talks to the PDP aspirations, that builds the Eastern Cape we want to be an enterprising province. Because we don't just want to build bridges, we need to connect people. The ICT infrastructure for us is very critical. That's why Premier moved with speed of light when he saw this embarrassing situation.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to speak to us. That was Mvusiwekhaya Sicwetsha, Eastern Cape Premier Oscar Mabuyane's spokesperson.